Does Half-Life have time travel? Oh yes, and today I'm going to describe how it works, setting the record straight about some of the timeline information floating out there. And this has full spoilers for everything in Half-Life so far, up to and including Half-Life Alyx. So the first part of this video will establish the Half-Life lead-up story events that set the stage for time travel. Then Part 2 will confront the time travel in Half-Life Alyx and all its implications for timelines and lore. By the end of today's seminar, you will be able to one-up the know-it-alls who claim that the time travel in the VR game accounts for everything that already happened in vanilla Half-Life 2. So before we throw the time travel wrench into the series arc, let's establish how things even got to this point as we dive into it here now. When it all began, Half-Life 1 had the Black Mesa incident, which opened the alien portal. And then the sequel takes place 20 years later. By that point, the aliens have taken control over Earth and all humans. But then after Half-Life 2 came out, they announced the story would continue in an episode format, continuing the narrative with a game called Half-Life 2 Episode 1, and then Episode 2. But no Episode 3. What is the implication of that? Is Valve a dishonest development studio? Did they announce a game and just abandon it without even acknowledging it? Well, with the episodic format, what is even the implied minimum? I'm inclined to say 3 minimum. Otherwise, by Episode 2, what, you mean episode finale? The expectation is serialization. The episodes only advance one single time from Episode 1 to 2. And I know Episode 1 is a continuation of standalone Half-Life 2, but Episode 2 ends with a burning cliffhanger, when Eli dies. After Episode 2 came out, the lead writer did interviews with hints of where the story might go for the characters. Gabe Newell even revealed the existence of a deaf character that Alyx had met before meeting Gordon, and that gave Valve an excuse to make the sign language technology that they wanted to include in the game. The goal was to increase accessibility of gaming to people that are hard of hearing. But then Valve didn't follow through on that. They never made anything with that character, even though Gabe had given himself a rush of endorphins by talking about this supposed technology in a university campus discussion about deafness in gaming. So they abandoned Episode 3, and they also abandoned that cause of accessibility that Gabe Newell had boasted about. Episode 3 collapsed for good, after they had spent too many years trying to make a game in a way that the full team was satisfied with. And that lead writer I mentioned, Mark Laidlaw, had enough. This wasn't the only reason he left Valve, but it certainly was a factor in his departure. Every project they were working on stalled and restarted. Valve has that super democratic development structure where many people have a really strong vote, so if they can't resolve creative differences, it can screech the game to a halt and cancellation. The new writers on staff wanted the G-Man to do things or say stuff that went against the character's intended ambiguity and restraint. I used to assume that Half-Life was primarily a vision of Gabe Newell, but it's much more of a team effort, with plenty of Mark Laidlaw, plus the committee of sorts that can get gridlocked. But what Laidlaw did next after he left Valve is actually important for the lead-up to the in-game time travel. Laidlaw knew that fans were disappointed that the story was never continued after so many years in the lurch. It was like a Game of Thrones abandonment. So as a compromise to provide fans some amount of closure, 1 year after resigning from Valve, he posts a written story which he called Epistle 3. This was essentially a thinly veiled draft of what Episode 3 could have been. It takes place after Eli's death. Alyx honors Eli's wishes by setting the Borealis boat to self-destruct and then sending it into the Combine homeworld to blow up and end the threat. You should definitely watch the fan-made visualization of this story on YouTube. Link in the description. It's really good. Very poetic and striking in a good way. So Epistle 3 is not canon, but even if Episode 3 proper was cancelled, posting the story digitally sort of steals some of the thunder and impact from what was going to happen next for Gordon and everyone. Epistle 3 shows you how the leadership structure is advanced in Eli's absence. Why would Laidlaw divulge that? If the Borealis was going to have any involvement in future stories, he just goes and touches upon it? What? He later expressed regret about sharing the story. He just posted it. He didn't really think it through. So it's kind of like we weren't meant to actually see it, but it happened. So in the aftermath of that digital spill, we have arrived at the main portion of today's video about the time travel component in Half-Life Alyx, which I have come more to terms with given the weird spillage of Epistle 3. Half-Life Alyx is a prequel to Half-Life 2. It happens 5 years before the important events in City 17 and Ravenholm and everything. This prequel is the VR game, and the climax of the story brings in a kind of time travel element. As you'll see, time travel can be controversial. If you can just up and time travel anywhere in time and even change events, it just undermines the dramatic gravity, because any new story progressions from that point can just Control Z to undo. How many Marvel movies have you seen? However, today I'm going to actually defend the time travel in the particular case of this VR game because it works as a fix to the Laidlaw problem, but not so much something developers should strive for up front. Just so you know, for these 20 years between mainline games, Gordon is in stasis the whole time, from the very end of Half-Life 1 to the insertion point at the start of Half-Life 2. Now, when you say stasis, you might imagine that as Gordon being cryogenically frozen like Shadow the Hedgehog, but it's much more profound than that in Half-Life. Gordon is suspended in time, removed from space-time as an entity, and he can be inserted back in on demand, by the G-Man in this case. So in Half-Life Alyx, when the titular heroine gets to the climax, she's about to die, but G-Man intervenes and saves her at the last moment, and he uses this opportunity to recruit her. He makes her an offer she can't refuse. Sound familiar? He tells Alyx that, guess what? In the future, 5 years from now, Eli is scheduled to get death. Yeah, that cliffhanger from Episode 2's ending, the last canonical thing that ever happened in Half-Life games officially. No worries, G-Man can undo it, but now you have to work for G-Man. So Alyx is put into stasis for later use. We don't know what for yet, or when he will deploy her. Insert her. Will G-Man insert her so she can be present to do all the things in Half-Life 2 that we played through and its episodes? No. You've played Half-Life 2. Alyx had not been missing in that game. We know that she was actively present and working with Eli for many years leading up to Half-Life 2. She did various covert missions to sabotage the Combine and research their deal for new technologies. Extensive resume building. We don't yet know when the G-Man is going to deploy the 19-year-old Alyx that he put into stasis. So snatching Alyx into stasis causes a new timeline that has branched off, and it's different with Alyx's absence suddenly. What I don't see enough people talk about is, in this new timeline, what's the deal with Eli from the end of Half-Life Alyx from then on? Alyx is now gone, but he's alive and doing fine physically. He's going to continue living in a way that's different because it's without Alyx. She was snatched from time exactly 15 years after Black Mesa. In this new timeline, will Eli even end up at the Citadel in 5 years? Or, if you think about the butterfly effect, maybe in this alternate timeline without Alyx, things go better for Eli, by and large. Without the distractions of Alyx, maybe Eli discovers a tropical resort planet that he can access on demand, where he is very happy and comfortable. He's still fighting with the human resistance, but he can do most of that remotely and safely. He earned it. He still gets the alumni emails from Harvard up in Metro Boston. It's the rest and relaxation that Eli deserves by this point, after everything he's been through at his age. But that's just a possibility. G-Man will eventually insert Alex, which will cut into Eli's beach time. And then meanwhile, in the original timeline, as the result of Alex's choice, the cliffhanger death of Eli in the regular timeline is averted, undone, and we actually see this in a flash-forward scene in the post-credits of Half-Life Alyx. In this, you play as Gordon to see Eli ready to continue the journey right after Episode 2. So now Epistle 3 is gone, out of the way, and it was never canon, but Eli's death had been canon. But now, from this point on, he is alive in that timeline. In that timeline where Eli is restored, Eli knows that Alex is missing and even suspects the G-Man. But he does still remember everything Alex did over the past 5 years, up until the Episode 2 finale. Otherwise, how could Eli talk to Gordon about her? Or even feel the need to acknowledge she's missing? She disappeared from that point when she was 24 years old, exactly 20 years after Black Mesa. In her absence, Gordon with Eli have got work to do, more missions in future games. Now, you can ask, why would G-Man feel the need to go back in time 5 years to a previous Alex in order to affect this future thing? Is that contrived or sloppy? Well, it is justified in some ways when you consider G-Man's motives. So, quick trivia question. Why would G-Man need an Alex on staff? When did the G-Man start to lose control of Gordon? That would be at the beginning of Half-Life 2, Episode 1, which picks up immediately after the very end of vanilla Half-Life 2. What force is even powerful enough to wrestle control from G-Man? That would be the Vortigaunts. They intervene right at the start of Episode 1. And I'm going to do a whole separate video about them, and it's going to be great. It will cover their affiliation with Gordon Freeman. If you're in luck, that video already exists. G-Man can see it regardless. He can see across time. But when the Vortigaunts take Gordon for a bit, G-Man starts thinking about maybe grabbing a new employee. Alex has proven herself, but this late and deep into things, she's already been through so much. She is hardened and weathered. So 5 years earlier, she's more impressionable, easier to mold and steer around for the G-Man's goals. She can aim very well, with VR precision. I think she can aim as good as Gordon, it's understood. G-Man could deploy either Alex, the 19-year-old version, or the 24-year-old, wherever and whenever he decides to. And it is possible that in the Eli-only timeline that maybe G-Man deploys her fairly soon, so that she doesn't lose out on a lot of those training years. But he could also deploy Alex in the lead-up to the Citadel, or even after that. But don't hold your breath on that. It probably will happen someday eventually, but for your own sanity and self-respect as a gamer, let's just bask in all the great lore that we do have already that can never be taken away from us. I love Half-Life stories and the lore behind it, but even I have to acknowledge that story is not the supermost primary focus of Half-Life games. It's a video game experience first, and Gabe Newell is interested in story primarily as a way of serving the gameplay. If I had to guess, Valve and Gabe don't have a ton of foresight for the long-term series outline of events. I think they just take one full step at a time in a vacuum, with loose threads dangling for the future. They leave open those ambiguities to be stitched back together in after the fact during the next game's development. They'll figure that out later. G-Man was supposed to be Valve's plot-crafting failsafe, an easy way to tie up a game conveniently and set up future installments with total pliability, wide-open possibilities. The next proper Half-Life game could be great, but the fact is, we've got to protect our expectations in the sense that Valve is, quietly, an unproven studio. They're untested. They have rolled around in the financial safety net of being business middlemen for game sales. So as a gaming studio, we've never really seen what they're truly made of, yet. given their stunted limited output. They have never made a threequel. Every series only has 2 installments: Left 4 Dead, Portal, Dota, and Team Fortress, right? So what? Everyone's got a good sequel in them, duh. But what are you going to do to take things forward? Well, as we wind down here now, make sure you check out CoffeeZilla's deep dives into Valve Steam Incorporated, about the controversial accessibility of gambling mechanics to perhaps too many players. Loot boxes with random rewards can fuel compulsive spending. You're chasing that high. If a gambling mechanic in a Steam game lets you bet skins that sell for money otherwise, it's like kids that play it are gambling underage with like true monetary assets. So as we all plow forward into this gambling paradigm, I want to give a huge shout out thank you to the G-Star305 for suggesting a video topic about Valve games. It just so happens that I was there for Half-Life 1 and Team Fortress 1, and those are formative, cherished gaming memories for me. So for the rest of you, if you enjoyed this mind-bending time travel discussion, thank you, and hit that like button, because it would really help a lot toward incentivizing more videos in this vein. And I have already greenlit the Vortigaunt Free Will video. That's a canon expectation to such a degree that the G-Man has already seen that video. So after you hit the like button, feel free to suggest video topics, because if you give me a good idea like the G-Star did, I could end up doing one. This has been Alex Yard here at 91.6 WAYZ, the Alex Yard Zone, terrestrial internet radio, deep in the heart of Boston. Gordon Freeman went to college for a PhD in Metro Boston, in Cambridge, and so did Eli Vance. Not at the same college, though, but the same city, very far from Black Mesa. During their time in this Red Sox city, they would have gone to the Museum of Science Boston, a building complex that technically straddles the border between Cambridge and Boston proper. So if you're on vacation in Boston, you should go to the museum. I went many times growing up. You go there knowing it's a place that Eli and Gordon definitely would have gone to see the exhibits and planetarium. They were into science in the Boston area for their PhDs, and all their Boston learning went to good use in the resistance effort to fight the Combine, to free humanity and its allies from a half-life of struggle and oppression. What this means is that Alex Vance was raised on those New England revolutionary values. Boston is the birthplace of the American Revolution. So Eli Vance carries the torch in the human resistance rebellion, remotely or otherwise. Good night, everybody.